Charles is a public speaker, podcaster, and author, and his work covers a wide range of topics, including history of human civilization, economics, and spirituality, and the ecology movement. I also want to just call out that he's written two wonderful essays recently called The Coronation and The Conspiracy Myth that offer an awesome insight into what's happening right now in this moment. And my last thing I'll say is that I also just believe he's one of the people who really captures the zeitgeist of this larger culture, this meta culture that John just referenced, that the Burning Man community happens to be a part of. Charles, thanks so much for being with us here this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. I hope that everybody can hear me. I was really moved by especially the last two presentations for slightly different reasons. First, that referring to John Leo's presentation on ecosystem restoration, it just shows how the healing of the world is actually not technically very difficult. If we devoted even a tenth of the energy that we devote to armaments, and took that money and took that labor and creativity and devoted it toward healing society and healing the planet, we would be living in paradise in a very short span of time. And I just love these glimpses of what's possible because it affirms what you just mentioned, the title of my book, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. It says, yeah, heart, you're right. Even if the mind has been telling you that it's impossible because the changes are too great that we need to make, well, here is a little glimpse of the future reaching into the present and to show us a path. And I loved, that really made my day, the image of the seesaws on the border fence. And what that spoke to me in a different way. There's a little bit of a David versus Goliath thing, this enormous fence with this entire apparatus of imperialism behind it. But here's like, what really struck me is the border guards, on both sides, allowing it and taking pictures of it and smiling. And that reaches another source of hope, which says that this oppressive apparatus is not monolithic. And on some level, maybe not on an ideological level, but on some level, nobody actually wants this. Nobody thinks that almost nobody thinks that the wall is a thing of beauty. It's more of like, it's kind of a necessity. But those seesaws, they really reach the heart in a different way and also speak to me about what's possible for peace. And both of these exemplify the theme of interbeing, which I like to phrase it in many ways, but one of them is that it offers us a new and ancient story of who we are, whereas the modern self describes us as separate individuals, maybe having relationships with other separate individuals, and all of us inhabiting a world that is separate from ourselves. Interbeing says, no, actually who you are is relationship. And your being includes the being of these other people and the being of the world. Therefore, if these other extensions of yourself with whom you relate, if they are not thriving, if they are not healthy, you cannot thrive or be healthy either. That security, that health, that wealth cannot come through dominating and controlling those outside of ourselves, cannot come through building a wall between ourselves and those who are suffering from the results of an extractive neoliberal capitalist system, nor can we be healthy or happy through the destruction of nature and the appropriation of all of nature's wealth for our own short-sighted profit or limited self-interest. It's like, even if you say, okay, let's be completely selfish here, even from that from that starting point, it still is a fool's game. Like it does not, it cannot bring real wealth or real health or real security to be in an antagonistic, dominating relationship with the other. So as we let in this understanding, it becomes totally natural to put our energy into ecosystem restoration, because we know that we'll benefit as well, or into social healing. It's not like, well, we have to start being fair and make up for the bad things that we've done to Black people, to Indigenous people, to all the other people. It's not just that. It's also that, wow, we now realize that we cannot actually thrive if we don't include everybody else. That is the inevitable conclusion that comes from InterBeing. So it breaks down actually this seeming divide between altruism and selfishness. That's one aspect of the reunion that we're looking towards. So, and I would add, actually, since we're in the time of COVID, I would add another dimension to this principle of InterBeing, that wholeness. I mean, that's what health is. It's wholeness. Wholeness has to include our full being, our full wholeness. And that includes our relationships with other people and with the microbial world. So it's kind of the same mentality of wall them off, keep them out, dominate them, kill them, destroy them. That is being applied in the response to COVID-19, as is also being applied to immigration. And there are other ways, other conceptions of health that recognize the necessity of a constant throughput of life through our bodies, that recognize that our immunity depends on the health of our microbiome, that understand that viruses are not only agents of disease, but also carry information between cells, between organisms, that they're part of this matrix of relationship that constitutes thriving life. And yeah, and that also, and that our immune system needs these challenges, and that also understands that our health and thriving depend on our ecology of social relationships too. In my mind, one of the gifts that, well, I was going to talk about something else, but I'll just actually add in one more thing. Or will I? No, I'll go with the original one. It's kind of weird talking to like a blank screen here. I'm like, are people, anyway. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. Usually I'm at least talking to somebody with a square around their head, you know. Anyway, one of the gifts that festivals like Burning Man, not that there's anything quite like Burning Man, but one of the gifts that they offer is, and this is another aspect of InterBeing, like what would a world built on InterBeing look like? We can look at that in terms of ecological healing, soil regeneration. We can look at that in terms of social healing. It's not going to have borders. It's not just going to be burners without borders. It's going to be one of reconnecting and embracing more connections. And also, it is going to be a society that is dedicated to beauty. We live actually on an extravagant, profuse planet, not a planet of scarcity. One of the criticisms of Burning Man is that, oh my God, look how many, look at the amount of resources and energy it takes to build this thing in the desert and then take it apart again. And people calculate the fossil fuels and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And if you compare those resources to like one aircraft carrier group, it's actually not very much. And so it is pointing toward a different expression of the extravagance of life that I actually think is also a outreach from the future. And what does that have to do with InterBeing? it understands that because we are not separate, we, like all species on Earth, are here with a gift to contribute to the well-being of all, to the evolution of all, to the coming more and more alive of the world and coming more and more into beauty. In the age of separation, the human imprint on the world has very often been one of ugliness, one of destruction. Compare the boreal forests in Alberta with what they look like after tar sands have been excavated, for example. Look at the human-caused desertification, the clear cuts, the destroyed soil reefs, coral reefs. This is, I don't have to argue this point, that humanity has been an agent of destruction and uglification, but that's not inevitable. The solution to that isn't that we retreat from nature into our bubbles and leave no trace. The solution is that we leave a beautiful trace, that we understand ourselves as part of this circle of life that brings the world more and more alive, and that like the ancient Taoists, where every temple was conceived of as an enhancement to the landscape and took into account all of the relationships that went into building that temple. That is the kind of mindset that is born naturally from the understanding of interbeing. So yeah, unless I have a further prompt, Christopher, I will pause there and see if there's, or I could look at the chat, see if there's, I know we're a little bit over time, but I'm happy to continue a little bit if you want to invite that.
We have a minute or two. If anyone wants to drop a question in the Q&A box, we could take one really quickly. We probably have time for one, maybe two.
All right.
But I will say is that I can't even track the chat box right now because there is so much happening in there and people are feeling really, really inspired by what you're talking about, especially the message from the future.
Oh, there's one. How do you make these experiences accessible to locals? It's expensive. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the solution is that everyone comes to Burning Man, but I think it's meant to be an inspiration and an example. And this is already happening around the world. Many people are making Burning Mans, but then even on a more general level, it's the idea of festival, which has been part of the human experience from even before civilization. Like at special times of the year, hunter-gatherers who are normally in these widely distributed bands of 10 or 20 people, they come together as a whole tribe or as many tribes, and they have a festival. This is something that we need to claim and value. And if we value it and we bring humanity into coherency around this value, we can have a world of festival that also, I mean, look at all the surplus labor that we have now through lockdown. A lot of it isn't coming back. A lot of these jobs aren't coming back. We have now a surfeit of labor and creativity that could go toward ecosystem restoration camps, and still much left over could go toward music and art, and still much left over could go toward social healing and healing of trauma, racial healing, healing of the legacy of colonialism, and still much left over. So yeah, so to reclaim festival culture, I mean, this is, I really appreciate this online effort to maintain our connections. I think that digital technology can help us maintain connections, but it cannot fully encompass human connection. And data cannot fully encompass reality. We cannot reduce the world to data. We cannot reduce human connection to Skype and Zoom and online things. And if we are, we always talk, I'm hearing all the time about after COVID. and going back to normal. But I don't think that we are going to go to back to normal unless we claim what aspects of normal we want to go back to. And maybe some of them we don't want to go back to. Some things we're doing without right now that we're realizing maybe we can rethink these institutions. And some things we have to reclaim because they are not valued in a culture of risk minimization. Burning Man is not about risk minimization. Yeah, like you want to be safe and stuff, but if you really are putting risk minimization at the highest part of your altar, you're not going to go to Burning Man. So if we are going to have a future that has gatherings still, that has dance parties, that has group hugs, that has face-to-face sociality where you can see someone's full face and communicate as humans have from even before language, if we're going to have that, we have to uphold that as a value. And that's why I feel like, you know, festival culture is something that really understands that as a value. And so I want to put that meme into the stew pot here. That's a terrible metaphor. I'm supposed to be a writer, but you know what I mean. I want to circulate that idea, because if anyone, if we don't take a stand for restoring the value of in-person, in-place connection, if burners don't do it, who is going to do it? We're kind of the maybe one of the guardians of that value. And yeah, it doesn't mean to be reckless. I'm not talking about reckless, but I'm talking about many competing values, one of which is postponing death. That's what saving a life means, or prolonging life. And other values like play, like sociality, and in the end, even the health that comes through our relationships and connections. So yeah, I guess that's probably a good place to end. And yeah, thank you for letting me join you.